Have you ever noticed that the loudest silences often scream the truth no one wants to hear? Because right now, beneath the glimmering veneer of royal glitz and carefully staged Instagram smiles, a scandal is quietly metastasizing, and it is poised to rewrite the story of the Duchess of Sussex in ways that even her fiercest PR team can't suppress. Imagine a meticulously constructed empire of image, lawyers, and crisis managers, the kind that fights tooth and nail to control every syllable printed about you, suddenly faltering. That is exactly what has been happening as the revelations in Tom Bower's new book explode across the media landscape, igniting panic so severe it can be measured in press releases and silence. The Duchess and her team, famously litigious, have always wielded public relations like a sword, cutting down any threat before it sees daylight. But now their fortress is cracking, and the fissures are exposing a past carefully shielded for years. Before a single copy of Bower's bombshell book even hit the shelves, their spokesperson launched the most aggressive, almost primal defense in their history. They didn't merely dismiss the book, they went nuclear. Conspiracy, melodrama, fabricated theories, they named it all, attacking the author's integrity with precision. Naturally, outsiders assumed this hysteria was about charity scandals or financial audits or disgruntled former staff members venting. That was the obvious guess. But in reality, the truth behind the panic is far darker, far more intimate, and far more explosive. It is not what they wanted the world to know, it is the one story they cannot deny. The Duchess's pre-royal yacht past, the web of elite social networks, the shadowy figures orchestrating her ascent into the highest echelons of power. For 7 years, whispers of her yacht appearances and the men who managed her entry into royal circles circulated only in obscure corners of the internet, forums, YouTube rabbit holes, Reddit threads. The mainstream press treated it like radioactive waste, something untouchable, until Bower's book shattered the barrier. Suddenly, the Overton window cracked wide open, and the dam of silence began to flood. 4 days after the excerpts hit, a legacy magazine, one with a pedigree stretching back before the Crimean War, published a column that would make every lawyer in California break out in a cold sweat. Amidst mockery of a luxury retreat hosted by the Duchess, the columnist casually inserted the forbidden question: how many yachts was she a guest on before meeting her prince? Double figures or triple? Not as rumor, not as speculation, but stated as fact, with only the quantity left ambiguous. This was not a fleeting digital whisper. This was print, backed by lawyers, editors, and history. And then the silence began to scream. The couple's team did not issue denials. No cease and desist. No public correction. The meticulously litigious empire, which once sued over a handwritten letter, was mute. This is where the real story starts. Because strategic silence in this context is not absence, it is admission. They cannot risk a courtroom battle over yachts. If they did, the discovery process would expose every private flight, every banking trail, every text message with the men who facilitated her access to global elites. Suddenly, the carefully curated social ascent of a former actress was laid bare as a network-facilitated elite-engineered climb, shadowed by billionaires and mysterious club directors whose connections reach into the darkest recesses of the global financial underworld. From elite Hollywood parties to ultra-exclusive private clubs, from Mediterranean yachts to luxury New York showers, every detail Bower painstakingly uncovered reveals a pattern of carefully orchestrated access. And when a legendary U.S. litigator publicly named the Duchess as a potential witness in a federal lawsuit involving these networks, the implications skyrocketed. This was not internet gossip, it was verified fact, backed by institutional authority. Her legal team could say nothing without risking exposure of a decade-long labyrinth of wealth, secrecy, and proximity to power. Their silence was deafening, a neon-lit tell, signaling that the story was far larger than anyone dared imagine. And now, the world is finally paying attention. As the mainstream press finally began stepping into territory it had once feared to tread, the narrative shifted from whispers to a terrifyingly credible threat. Because the yacht allegations are not just gossip, they are a lens into an entire orchestrated ecosystem that enabled a moderately successful cable television actress to infiltrate the most guarded royal circles in the world. The photograph from the Mediterranean that went viral in early 2020 is a perfect case study. 7 women lounging on a massive luxury vessel under the blazing Balearic sun perfectly curated smiles for the camera. At first glance, it's an influencer's dream vacation, harmless and glossy. But someone had drawn red arrows pointing directly at the Duchess and at a brunette labeled as the girlfriend of a convicted billionaire financier, the very one whose dark exploits had shaken the global financial system. The caption screamed, "The 10-year girlfriend with the Duchess," and the internet collectively lost its mind. Millions of eyeballs, hundreds of thousands of shares, and a wildfire of speculation. It seemed for a moment that the story had officially broken. Yet, as professional fact-checkers dug deeper, the story's complexity revealed itself. The brunette woman was misidentified. She was in fact an Italian lifestyle blogger with a penchant for luxury picnics and travel content. No connection to the disgraced financier. One narrative collapsed spectacularly, but the fire beneath did not extinguish. Because the photograph itself, the Duchess herself, the yachts, the precise timeline, all of it was verified. August 2016. Mere weeks before the romance with the prince would become public, the stage was set. Every luxury excursion, every elite social connector present on that yacht was now a documented, undeniable fact. The architecture of influence, the private club networks, the billionaire benefactors quietly funding these trips, all of it remained intact, glaringly unanswered by spokespeople who had perfected the art of selective silence. And silence in this arena is louder than a press conference. A U.S. attorney of legendary reputation, already leading a high-profile civil lawsuit against the royal family, publicly placed the Duchess in the line of deposition, not as a defendant, but as a witness with direct access to the inner circles of a prince entwined with elite networks and predatory financiers. This was not idle speculation. This was a statement with teeth, and the legal implications were seismic. Every move her PR machine made thereafter, or rather did not make, spoke volumes. There were no angry denials, no defamation suits, no headlines demanding retraction. Only a strategic, terrifying silence as the layers of access, finance, and elite social manipulation quietly but inexorably came into focus. Every detail uncovered by investigative journalists paints a picture of meticulous orchestration. The global membership director of her exclusive private club, the facilitator of initial introductions to the prince, the men who financed, guided, and shaped her social trajectory, all of them left traces in publicly available records, in social registers, in financial filings. The Duchess's every step in this labyrinth of wealth and influence was tracked, orchestrated, and protected until now. Because the very moment Bauer's book gave mainstream legitimacy to long-ignored rumors, the walls of silence could no longer hold. The era of immunity ended, the Overton window swung open, and the consequences of her past social infrastructure became unavoidable. Every press release, every legal strategy, every carefully curated social appearance suddenly reads not as triumph, but as defensive choreography and a dance with exposure. And then there's the legal reality. If the Duchess had attempted to litigate against a legacy magazine over yacht claims, the discovery process would have been catastrophic. Bank records, flight logs, private communications, all subject to scrutiny. This is the invisible hand guiding every calculated silence. This is why the PR machinery, so legendary for obliterating small missteps, suddenly appears paralyzed. They cannot afford to invite the very scrutiny that would reveal the interconnected web of yachts, elite clubs, and billionaires. The pattern is clear. For 7 long years, independent voices tried to warn the world. 6 whistleblowers across continents and decades each faced suppression, ridicule, or worse for daring to speak. And yet, here we are, the dam broken, the story undeniable, and the silence screaming louder than ever. This is the true scandal, the calculated rise of a global figure through invisible networks of wealth and influence, the silence of legal teams when confronted with inconvenient truths, the careful orchestration of access, and the inevitable unraveling that even a multi-million-dollar PR empire cannot contain. And as the mainstream press finally steps into territory it once feared, as investigative journalists map the overlapping circles of elite social power, the world is only beginning to understand the magnitude of what was hidden in plain sight. The yachts were never the story, they were the gateway to a much darker, meticulously engineered saga of ambition, secrecy, and influence. And the real question now, how far will the exposure go before even the most protected names are pulled into the light? The story is far from over, and the silence, once a shield, is now the loudest signal of all.